I spend a lot of time criticizing young activists, often on this podcast. I worry that the left is engaged in activism and demonstrations that actually undermine the very thing they are trying to change. That's why I'm excited to bring on my guest today, Samuel Schwartz and Maya Luna. Sam is the executive director of the Tour to Save Democracy. Maya is the founder of the Progress Libs organization, and I believe they are emblematic of a different kind of Generation Z activist that actually knows what they're doing and has a concrete plan to make change happen. They're both working this summer on the Tour to Save Democracy, which is an young Gen Z-led activist group trying to help elect liberals in swing districts around the country. They joined the podcast to talk about why some youth activists choose such ineffective protest methods, why they believe getting out the youth vote is important, and how they plan to be more impactful as they try to swing the 2024 election. As always, thank you for listening. If you want to support us, you can do so on Patreon at patreon.com/newliberalpodcast. You can also support us by becoming a member of the Center for New Liberalism at cnliberalism.org/become a member. Supporters on Patreon and members both get access to bonus episodes of the podcast, our Sticker of the Month Club, and access to our community organizer Slack. Join today. Thank you for listening and enjoy the episode. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the New Liberal Podcast, part of the Center for New Liberalism. I'm your host, Jeremiah Johnson, and joining me today are Sam Schwartz and Maya Luna. Sam and Maya, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you for having us, Jeremiah.
I'm really glad to have you guys on. It's really refreshing to talk about what we're going to be talking about today, which is, how we can make a tangible difference in the world. And young people who are out there, doing good things in the world that may actually have an impact somewhere. But let's begin at the beginning. Let's get into the Tour to Save Democracy, which both of you guys are involved in. What is the origin of the Tour to Save Democracy? What is this?
So the origins of Tour to Save Democracy, just for some background about me, I don't know how many folks know my background, but I got involved in politics because of the Parkland shooting, and I lost my cousin and my best friend, Alex Schachter, in that shooting. He was one of 17 victims. And so we were both 14 years old and he was 6 months older. And that's how I got involved in politics. It was definitely by accident. I never thought I would be in, doing this type of work. And I was absolutely just kind of mostly disengaged from politics. I mean, I of course, I knew who Trump was. It was a meme in 2016. And, but I didn't really know anything beyond that. I didn't know any of the policies. I didn't know anything about any of these issues that I now do know something about. And so I really never imagined I would be here. And then when the shooting happened, it flipped my world upside down, and I knew I had to take some form of action. And for me, that was just becoming a gun violence prevention activist, as I think many people who experience gun violence do become. That is the path they take. It's very therapeutic. I've been doing this for the last 6 years. It's been 6 years since the shooting, which was in 2018. And much of that has consisted of just lobbying Republicans and just trying to get them on board with gun control legislation and gun safety legislation. And, I think everyone listening knows the answer to that. We have been largely unsuccessful in that. They won't move on any of these bills. And, I've been sitting in the Senate while Republicans in the Senate voted against an assault weapons ban and universal background checks expansion and safe storage laws. And, while that was happening, there were 2 mass shootings happening in real time. And so that's the reality we have. And so this tour was just born out of that inaction, and really just the need to elect Democrats to Congress who will prioritize not only gun violence prevention bills, but climate reform and abortion rights and healthcare and the economy and education and all of these things that Republicans are just absolutely incapable of taking action on. And so that's what the tour is doing. So this summer on the Tour to Save Democracy, we are first of all, we're a collection of Gen Z activists who are going on this bus. But what the Tour to Save Democracy actually is a group of young people traveling across the nation on a physical bus, stopping in the most vulnerable Republican seats in the country. You could also call them swing seats. And that's how we think that we can best create a Democratic trifecta, flip the House, expand the Senate, and reelect President Biden, so that in the next Congress, we can actually start to make significant sweeping progress on all of the issues that I listed. And it absolutely starts by meeting voters where they are, engaging young people, getting them excited to vote, letting them know what's possible and also what's at stake, and also just kind of targeting these swing seats, which is really this is the roadmap for Democrats of taking back the House and expanding the Senate. And so that's what we're doing this summer on this tour, and I'm very excited to be here to talk to you all about it.
I'm curious how those first conversations went, because, it's a really, really cool idea to kind of do a tour around the country, go to all these vulnerable, like you said, I would say vulnerable Democrats to protect their seats in Congress, and then also, target swing districts where Republicans could potentially, we could take a seat from the Republicans. But how did that actually come about? Like, who's kind of in the mix here in terms of there's a group of young people, they're talking about what we can do, the elections coming up. How did those conversations go? I'm kind of interested in the internal conversations that make this sort of thing happen.
Yeah, so I will say that this has been planned, or the first conversations were as far as last summer in July. And I was on a different bus tour with a group called Change the Ref, and I know them because they the founders of that group, Manuel and Patricia Oliver, they lost their son Joaquin in the Parkland shooting, the same as my cousin. So that's how I know them, and they invited me to go on there. That was a 50-day bus tour on a literal school bus across the country, and that had nothing to do with elections. It was purely just about spreading awareness about mass shootings, and they stopped in like 23 cities where major mass shootings had occurred. And while we were on that tour, I was like, of course, this is great, and I'm happy to be doing this work. But also, I really do believe that just talking to people isn't enough. I think we have to be actually talking to people in the districts where we can flip the House and start passing laws. For me, it's always like, okay, yes, this march is great, and yes, that vigil is great. Like, it's cool that we can do that. But like, are we going to actually pass some laws here? Because all of this it means nothing if we're just kind of running around in a circle and actually not taking any action. And to me, the whole point of this movement is to save lives and pass laws. And so while we were on that bus tour, I was thinking, like, of course, this is incredible. This is amazing, important work. But I really want to be doing something, I guess, like more impactful, like more direct, really targeting where we need to be as Democrats, talking to the people who we need to talk about, making sure that we spread our message of all of these issues being, attacked on by by Republicans, and our freedoms just being overturned essentially by Republicans, and making sure young people know that. The first conversations were literally just like, hey guys, I think it'd be cool to do this tour. Would you want to do it with me? And, we came up with a name. We looked at a map. It was like Cook Political, and we just said, all right, well, here's like 10 toss-up districts, and then it just kind of grew from there, I guess. We would start having like weekly calls. It was just I told my closest friends about it first, as you do with any big project, and I asked them to be a part of it. And we would just have Zoom calls. We would discuss which districts were the most vulnerable for Republicans and which districts were the best opportunity for Democrats to flip. And then as we went into the school year out in 2023 in August, we really started like developing more of a concise plan. So we knew we needed to reach young voters on digital, on social media, and we had multiple launch days, and we finally settled on May 2nd. And there's been a lot that has happened. I don't know if we have time to go into all of it throughout all of the months of the planning, which has been literally every day. It's basically a full-time job at this point of just how much work this is. But I think we're at this point now where the work is really starting to pay off, and people are really resonating with this idea, which I'm so happy about. And it's because I am supported by a team of wonderful activists, and I can tell you something about all of them. But Maya is one of them, and Maya is also the executive director of Progress Lives, which is one of our partner groups. And I was so happy and fortunate to be able to work with them. And so it is not just me doing this work. I'm really supported by just an amazing group of other young activists like Maya.
Yeah, and to add on to that, literally 2 weeks before Sam reached out to me, I started talking to other organizations. I started talking to other organizers that I was close with, and I was telling them, like, Gen Z has a lot of energy behind it. There's a lot of talk about the Gen Z vote, Gen Z activism, but it's felt that it's been kind of everywhere. There's org right here. There's another org right here. There are people on the far left, on the center left. Even though that we have a lot of this energy, we haven't really been able to mobilize that and put that together as much. So I started reaching out to them saying like, we should do something in the next couple months to really consolidate our power and our voice as a generation. Started doing those reach outs, and Sam reached out to me and he's like, hey, we're having this bus tour. We have all these people involved, and I was so excited to be a part of it.
One of the things that I think is really interesting is the issues that you're focusing on, in your online materials as we kind of, lead up to the tour, which is starting, I think, late June, early July. Remind me when that is?
Yeah, so the tour will be starting July 12th in Texas. That'll be the first stop.
July 12th, okay. As we kind of get ready for that, there's a lot of promotional stuff being, released online and social media. And a lot of the issues that are being talked about are kind of like very, very basic stuff, reproductive rights, democracy. How did you choose which issues to focus on?
We held multiple focus groups, and we would just kind of ask them. We would ask young people just at my college that I was, a little bit friendly with, who I had never spoken about politics with. I would say, what issues, just on as a person who is not involved in politics and knows next to nothing about it, what are the issues that are the most important to you? And consistently, it was gun violence prevention, the climate, abortion rights, the economy, housing, healthcare, LGBTQ rights, just a smattering of things. I mean, everyone had a different top issue, but for the most part, these were all the same. And then also when you look at like real groups who have like real funding to do like really, really good focus groups and polling like that, these are the same issues that are reflected. And for consistently, like when you see youth activists and youth groups like March for Our Lives and like Team Enough and everything, these issues are the most important to them. And also, like, these are the issues that get the 18 to 29 voters the most energized throughout this country. It doesn't happen just by like a candidate going to a college campus and then just speaking to the local college Democratic Party, which I think a lot of candidates do, and that's like, okay, that's fine to do, but there needs to be more than just going to the local college and doing that. And I think that was really what this tour is about. And it really also is just kind of me thinking about my future, and like, I want to have children in the future. And I definitely do not want them to have that educational experience that I did, where you're like, you're learning about whatever, like writing and reading and AP Lang, and then all of a sudden there's a mass shooter drill and you have to hide under your desk and in a closet. You can't focus that way. I mean, it's just traumatic. And then when I think about the issues of climate change, it seems so pressing and scary, even more to me than gun violence prevention, because of the entire planet. And I think you talk to young people about the issues that matter most to them, and these are the ones. It is absolutely things that are focal to us, and we see it all the time in the news. Another mass shooting, another news about the climate, Republicans do something about, abortion rights, and just consistently, these are the issues that rank the highest for young people.
And I think one really important thing to keep in mind is that this is not the Sam tour. This is not the Maya tour. This is the Gen Z tour. We have, Sam is partnered with over 27 other organizations, all of which are providing their own young people, their own energy, their own issues. We want to make, even though we might have our own priorities, we want to make sure that people understand that Gen Z is a diverse coalition, but we can work together.
There's a couple thoughts I have here about, this, where I agree with something you said, Sam, where like, that it's funny when you look at high quality polling of young people. If you're on social media, you can easily think that like the biggest issues for young people are Palestine and I don't know, very, very other like trendy topics. But when you actually poll them, they're not actually very different from the public at large. Certainly young people are like more liberal, more democratic leaning than the public at large. But if you ask them what their number one issue is, it's the economy. And then number two, I think, is just like inflation. And like it's the stuff that everybody cares about. And then, healthcare and jobs and climate change and like kind of this very basic stuff that everybody cares about, everybody, wants to do. And so it strikes me that, number one, I think you guys have done a pretty good job of just sticking to basic stuff. Abortion rights is certainly a big issue. The one thing that I'm curious about, and I know this is part of your background, Sam, but I think for the most part, looking as an outsider, you guys have done a really good job of sticking with issues that like unite Democrats and are not controversial among Democrats. We should have lots of focus on climate change. The public is really supportive of that. The public is mostly supportive of abortion rights. We're winning ballot initiatives everywhere. We can focus on the economy. The one that I think is a little more contentious is gun violence and gun policy, I guess. I certainly feel some kind of way about it, but historically, as you said, this has been an issue where it's really, really hard to kind of make a difference, to get anything done. But what do you think about kind of including something as divisive as that? And maybe it's unfortunate that guns are divisive in this country, but they are.
I mean, I don't know. I personally don't believe it's divisive, and it's not just me saying I don't believe it. There's been lots of high-profile, reputable polling done that states like something like a universal background checks is at like 91% approval rating. An assault weapons ban is lower, but still an overwhelming majority of 61% of Americans would want that action. And so, on the last tour that I spoke about, the Change the Ref tour, we were meeting so many people who were conservatives, Republicans, who were coming up to us and saying like, yeah, of course I want this. This is like what it means to be a responsible gun owner. It doesn't mean that it's like an infringement on your Second Amendment rights and you can't have guns at all. It means that we need to have some kind of restrictions. I think to a certain extent, it is divisive, but it's really only divisive when you talk about the certain policies. I think the need for gun control in general is not divisive. But this tour is really about kind of just uplifting young people. And when you ask young people what their opinion is on gun violence, overwhelmingly they will come and tell you, absolutely, we need to take some kind of stronger action because all of these kids grew up hiding underneath their desks in schools. And so obviously the generation that grew up with that is going to want some significant change in the future.
I think that's a fair point. Guns as a culture war item are intensely divisive, but it may be a good point that particular things can kind of cut through that. Whether it's an assault weapon ban or whether it's background checks or things like that, there may be wider support that simply doesn't move because of certain lobbying interests. So one thing I would love to ask about is kind of, what is your theory of change? And I ask this because I spend a lot of time criticizing young activists. I tend to think that there's a lot of really terrible youth activism that takes place today. And unfortunately, some of the most terrible, most stupid forms of this get a lot of attention on social media. They go viral really easily. And I spend a lot of time talking about like these people are insane. These young activists are crazy. They're actually, poisoning people against the causes that they care about. And it's really refreshing to see something that doesn't appear to be going in that direction. And to me, I think one of the differences is, do you have a theory of change or not? Do you have an idea of like, how are my actions actually going to change the world? So what is your theory of change? How do you plan for this to actually make a difference in a real way?
Yeah. And I want to talk about this idea of the Gen Z extremist real quick. I definitely do not agree with many of the tactics of a lot of the people in my generation. I think a lot of times they are a bit histrionic. I think a lot of times they're counterintuitive. I think we all saw that
have
video.
You thrown soup on a painting at any point? Have you thrown tomato soup on anything? Because otherwise, I'm not sure that you really care.
So I spilled soup on my pants recently. Does that count? But I think one thing that we really forget when we have these conversations is that all these actions come from a deep care, from a deep understanding and knowledge that things are broken right now and things don't feel like they're getting better. And I think we're doing a real disservice towards the future of activism by completely writing them off. We should instead focus more on nurturing those people, right? You're not doing it the right way. Let's give you an opportunity to do it the right way. And that's why I think the Tour to Save Democracy is so important. It is Gen Z voices teaching Gen Z that you have a voice, that you have an opportunity to push policy, to get the people you want elected, and in that way enact real change. We've been throwing soup at the wall. We've been, putting up encampments, but so far nothing has changed. And what's really going to change things for my generation and the generations after ours is putting people in power that are actually going to make those changes.
Yeah, I want to expand upon that because that is really the most important thing. That is the end all be all. You can march and lobby and do everything, hold vigils and sit outside on your campus in a tent and throw as many food items at priceless artifacts as you want. And in the end, it's really not going to contribute to any actual legislation being passing. So like what Maya said, I really, really agree with. And that is our theory of change. Like for us, and for me, when I was a young person right after Parkland, and I saw the kids that were a little bit older than me, I'm talking about the March for Our Lives kids. I was a young person who was inspired by seeing other young people take action. And so we think that going forward, other young people will be inspired by other young people taking action. And when other people see people take action, it is also just naturally very inspiring. So like the other thing is though, like if young people can do it, definitely older people can do it. For me, it's a duty to, repay what happened to my cousin Alex and make some light out of a tragedy. But we're really just trying to give hope and motivation to people. Like we're trying to make them do what we're doing, because there cannot be 10,000 Sams, but there can be 10,000 different people doing this kind of work. But really, like talking about just I know we're talking about leftists and campus protests right now, but also like we're not trying to yell or argue with these people. Like they have an absolute right to go out there and do what they're doing, and they have all the right in the world to talk about what's happening in Palestine. And we really think that, this might be a little bit divisive to all the issues that they are also definitely passionate about. I'm sure if you went up to one of the campus protests at Harvard or any of these other schools and you said, what's your opinion on LGBTQ rights? Do you think, do you think we should take action on the climate? And do you think we should restore the right to have an abortion nationally? Every single one of them would say absolutely yes. And so we're trying to say like, hey, this is the person that's going to get this done in your district. And you have absolutely the right to feel mad about Palestine and Israel. At the same time, though, just realize that what we are doing right now could be a little bit divisive, and we want to try to just educate them in a friendly, engaging manner that isn't just arguing or calling them stupid, or we don't want it to just divulge into some massive argument here. But yeah, we're really just trying to make it fun and engaging for them.
And the way I've always visualized it to people whenever I talk to them about this issue is young people are kind of like a barrel of flammable oil. Maybe they'll explode in the wrong area, but they have energy. We have potential. And by just casting us away as something that is dangerous or that, we can't guide in the right way is really ignoring the potential of Gen Z. I know for myself, as I got started into politics, I was constantly looking for an opportunity to get involved. I was growing up in rural North Carolina, and I didn't see any opportunities for me to get involved politically. There weren't any canvases. There weren't any county Democrat meetings. There was really nothing for me. And for 2-3 years, I kind of just shrugged it off and said, who cares? I guess nothing's going to happen. But after the Trump years, I realized something had to happen. And at the same time, I realized that if I felt a certain way, there are probably 100 other people in my area that felt that as well. So I started canvassing in my little district, and I started tweeting about it. And we got 5 people canvassing, then 10, 15. By the end of the midterms, we had around 40 people canvassing for school board elections in North Carolina. Young people want to get involved. We just have to give them the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, and just taking a page out of the book of 2016, learning lessons from why we were unsuccessful and why Trump won, is because there was such a big split of support for Democrats in that movement. What Bernie was just able to do was he was just kind of, he split a lot of Democrats away from, voting for Hillary, and we lost. And so I, obviously don't want that to happen again. But, it's just kind of learning from this. A big part of this tour was trying to minimize duplication of efforts. And, just because I've existed in this gun violence prevention world for 6 years, I can tell you that there is so much duplication of efforts between different groups, between different activists, different whatever organizations, and they all have, good intentions. Maybe some don't. But for the most part, all of these groups want to have a safer country where less people are dying by guns a year. And the way that they go about that is everyone holds a march, or everyone, goes to DC and lobbies for their own bill that they're passionate about. And it's basically just a bunch of people throwing stuff at a wall and seeing what will stick. There's no unity. There's no nobody is coalesced behind one thing. On the other hand, Republicans are absolutely unified on their messaging, on what bills they want. I mean, even if it's fake. I mean, look at the Easter thing. Like, this is not even a real thing that Democrats did, where they were coming and attacking Easter by putting Transgender Day of Visibility on it. But instantly, Republicans were able to switch the narrative, pivot, and attack on Democrats for doing something that they never even did. Meanwhile, we really have a hard time attacking Republicans for things that they are doing. Democrats are really kind of obsessed with statistics and, just trying to prove Republicans wrong in this way that might look amazing on paper, but when you're talking to a young person, it's not going to resonate. When you're talking to somebody who's not engaged in politics, it's not going to resonate. So really just trying to merge all of these movements of people who want to do great things, really trying to, like, for example, I think it's crazy that the gun violence prevention movement and the climate movement and the abortion rights movement don't work together more. We all need the same things to happen for our own priority bills to pass, and that is literally electing Democrats. For the most part, Democrats are unified on issues. Of course, there's some who don't, but like, we all need to elect Democrats to further our own agendas. And so that's why another reason why we're doing this tour is that, yeah, it helps my own reason for getting into politics, which is gun violence prevention, but it also does all of these other things.
It's interesting to focus on electing Democrats, which I agree with. Like, it all in the end is going to come back to that, because you're not going to get gun control passed without a Democratic majority everywhere. You're not going to get abortion rights codified. You're not going to get a lot of this stuff, right? Action on climate change that means anything. But getting Democrats elected is hard work, and it requires like real on the ground action. And I wonder about the role of social media here, because obviously Gen Z is intensely online, and the stuff that we're talking about that we like make fun of when it's somebody defacing art or doing a campus sit-in or gluing themselves to something or whatever the case may be, that stuff gets so much more attention and goes so much more viral on social media. And I wonder if that's part of the problem, is that like effective things are quiet and ineffective things are loud.
Well, absolutely. Like, I think just looking at and I'm going to bring up Change the Ref again, because I think they're one of the most successful gun violence prevention groups to bridge the gap of, yes, this is an important issue, we have to bring awareness to it, and also making it media friendly and ensuring that the media wants to cover this. A big problem that Democrats have is we're so boring. And nothing we do is interesting, because we are, for the most part, respectful people who want to make positive change, and we exist in good faith. On the other hand, Republicans have no problem with saying crazy things that they know will get media attention, like Marjorie Taylor Greene coming to the, the State of the Union wearing full MAGA gear. Like, no Democrat would do that. Meanwhile, they have no problem with it. So what we had to think of was, what's something, that could be potentially like a media thing that would entice them. What's going to break the narrative here? What's going to, how can we basically just entice the media to do this? But it's really not even about the media too. It's making sure that other young people are excited about this. And so we're really kind of leaning into this whole summer aspect of it, like a road trip thing, and making this kind of more just, not, and I don't want to say not older person friendly, because of course this is an intergenerational thing. But at the same time, you have to be conscious of the fact that young people do not exist on MSNBC. They're not sitting down after whatever and popping on MSNBC, like turning on CNN and watching Jim Acosta, although I do, but most people are not. So, it's all about existing and meeting young people where they are, and that's on social media, and it's doing things that they want to do.
This isn't your mama's bus tour, all right? But on the same note, for myself at Progress Lives, like, our entire focus has been trying to bridge that communication gap. I actually just wrote a piece recently about the failures of the Democratic Party to really communicate to the average and now the younger voters. Currently, we have in production like a silly little cooking show featuring candidates, different thought leaders, academics, right? Trying to give these people a platform where they can talk about serious issues without it feeling like a boring slog, right? Not another like CNN roundtable, not another like back and forth podcast. People want these engaging conversations. They want substance, but a lot of what CNN, a lot of what traditional podcasts or influencer culture gives people is something that's very vacuous.
And we're talking about people who are not politically involved, by the way. So when Maya says like, not another podcast, like, but the people listening to this, you guys are already engaged and tuned in, and you will probably 100% of you will be voting. We're talking about how do we engage the people who are not going to vote and who maybe are skeptical of politics and who think that both sides are the same. And this is the struggle of every election, but this year it really is going to come down to how effectively can Democrats message on these issues. And just straight up, we are better on all of the issues. We are absolutely right on the issues of economy and education. I mean, education's our issue. It has been for 100 years. No way are we going to let Republicans be able to take that and let people like Chaya Raichik try to insert her influence and say that Republicans are keeping your children safe in school. Like, it's just a bunch of absolute BS. And the more that we can kind of effectively communicate that to people on the ground, like young people, the better off we will be. And so that's another thing we're trying to do on this tour.
Sam, that's a future Secretary of Education, Chaya Raichik. If you want to look at our dystopian future.
Yeah, we're done if that happens.
I mean, yeah, let's not. But it's interesting to me, kind of, because one of the things, I'm a little bit older. I'm like a millennial in my 30s. I've seen things like this before, where there's this big youth movement and there's an effort. We got to get out the youth vote. We got to inspire young people to vote. And the thing is that usually it doesn't work. I think one time in my lifetime it has worked a little bit, and that was with Obama. Obama, whether it was his organization or his personality, I don't know what you want to give credit to, but Obama got the youth vote up a decent amount, I think. But it's kind of this meme in politics of like, you can't count on the youth vote. Young people just never go vote. And, I'm old enough to remember in the 90s when it was like rock the vote was the big thing. And it was all these like rappers and rock stars, and Christina Aguilera was, would appear on MTV back when people actually watched MTV. I don't know if you guys are aware that world existed.
Actually, really funny. I just met with the CEO of Rock the Vote today, a couple hours ago.
It's funny because they used to be a lot bigger deal. Like, they used to be dominant in the culture. Like, in an election year, every commercial on MTV, when you were watching, every single one would have Rock the Vote. And like Christina Aguilera or P. Diddy, who is now not looking good, but like he was big into it back then as well. But like it was this big thing. All youth vote, we're going to rock the vote. And then the youth vote percentage would be exactly the same as it was the last election. It would still be low. And so I wonder, like, how do you guys think about that? That like it's kind of this really, really difficult task. When you say like we need to inspire young people, we need to get them activated. Like, that's a Herculean task that very few people have ever succeeded at.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard as hell. It's going to be, but also like in the 2022 midterms, I think the youth vote was near record high numbers. So like, and that was just like not even 2 years ago. Yeah, it is very difficult to get young people out to vote. It always has been, and it always will. I mean, really, our thing here is like, well, it's definitely not going to happen with an adult telling young people they have to vote. It's definitely not going to be, some Secretary of Transportation, no shade to Pete Buttigieg, telling young people they have to vote. I usually had an example. I actually love Pete Buttigieg. It's going to be another young person, right? And if we're going to be successful, it's going to be young people saying, hey, other young people, you have to come out and vote, and here's the reasons why, and doing it in a way that's actually productive instead of just yelling at them, which is what happens a lot of times. And really trying to effectively communicate to them. So like, yeah, Jeremiah, it is really difficult, but like we, number one, have to try. And I think we are really kind of doing something here that isn't typically done before. I think a lot of times Democrats, or when people try to get the youth vote, they do the same events at the same places. They may go to New York City, they might go to like LA or something, and they might do an event with some celebrity, and it's great, but the same people are being messaged over and over and over again. And so maybe we're not seeing enough youth turnout because it's not actually young people doing this kind of work. A lot of times it's adults, and there's nothing wrong with that, but we think that it just has to come from other young people.
Yeah, and I think Gen Z is completely different from any generation before us, right? We are extremely politically active. We are extremely politically knowledgeable, right? To the point where news and political media is kind of just a part of our entertainment. If you think of, what's the John Oliver show? What's Tonight with John Oliver?
Like Late Night or something?
Yeah, Late Night with John Oliver.
Last Week Tonight. Last Week Tonight, I think.
Okay.
Which is a great name, but...
yeah, it's Last Week Tonight.
But either way, like Gen Z is extremely politically active. And we have so many more ways to communicate with each other. If you go back to the MTV days, you had like AOL. What even is that? Now we have Twitter. We have a little brick in our
Maya,
pockets.
you're making me feel very old here.
I'm sorry, but
it's funny because I think I write about the internet a lot, and I was back, like you said, at AOL, AIM chat rooms, and live journals and MySpace. Like that was my first experience on the internet.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be real. I don't even know what half of those are. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was either.
But Gen Z is more connected to each other than ever before, and connectivity is really powerful when it comes to voting, social movements. We see what other people are doing online, and we want to do that. We see what the movements that other people are participating in, and we want to join in. We want to be part of this group. The problem is, so far, the far left and the far right have had a monopoly on that sort of energy, right?
Yes, they have.
Yeah, it's hard to match crazy person energy sometimes. That's the one thing about crazy people is they have a lot of enthusiasm for whatever they're crazy about. Let me ask you this, Maya, since you make that argument, and granted, maybe the connectivity issue is better now and people are more networked in this generation, and maybe politics is more just part of your entertainment diet. But I will make the counter argument that even if that's true, even if young people are a little bit more political than in past generations, there's still a lot of people out there who are just not very political. They might have views that are kind of in the direction of something, but they just don't think about it very much. They've got lives to lead, they've got a job, they've got school, they got shit to deal with. And so they just don't think, they're not like us. They're not online politics poisoned. How do you plan to reach them? How does the actual events you guys are doing, you're going around the country, you're doing all these different events in different districts. How do you plan to reach these people who kind of sort of care, but they just don't, they don't have time for it a lot?
Yeah. We don't have to win them over every single day of the year. They don't have to be tweeting about the latest thing that Bobrit said 12 minutes after she says it. All they need to do is go to a ballot box one time every 4, hopefully every 2 years. And we're communicating to them there's something kind of novel, right? And that is something that is youth-led. In the past, a lot of these movements have been run by older people. There hasn't been a space for young voices. Now, with the internet, with the value that we've been giving to young voices, we can finally take leadership over our own political voices and lead the movements that we want to be seeing.
Yeah, another thing though is basically making each of these events an event or a rally, not a rally, but it's making each of these events something that young people would do on their weekend or their time off from work or whatever. Like I know my friends and I when I was in high school would go to the beach and we would just kind of chill on the beach, and that would be something we would do, and we'd listen to music and that would be it, and then we'd go home. And so that would absolutely get me out to an event, right? And so like something that we're doing in Long Island, and so, for example, like doing a beach event there, and you come, like whatever, build a sandcastle, eat some food, go in the water with your friends, and then learn about abortion rights afterwards, and learn about gun violence prevention and the climate reform and all that. But the difference is that it's not being smacked across your face with a graph and statistics and some random guy with a beard that you've never heard of before. It is another young person, and it's at an event with your friends that you had a good time at. It's not all about politics. It's not just one singular thing, not one candidate. And it's also really not even about the candidates for us. It's about the policies mostly. And I think a lot of young people would agree on that. So that's another way we're reaching this, is kind of being and doing things that young people are already doing with their friends. And we're really trying to lean into that summer vibe and the summer aspect and just kind of build a nice, collaborative, fun time. And I think politics can be fun, because I think a lot of young people think politics is a dirty word. And we're really, really trying to change that. And we think that this is the best possible chance we have. And of course, we won't have 100% success rate, but we will get more people than not doing it will.
But I just love that, it's so Gen Z coded that you're like, some old guy with a beard who's showing me a chart with statistics. Like,
it wasn't a hate on beards. I'm sorry.
I mean, fair enough. There's a lot of people out there with beards, who and I may be one of the people who loves to cite statistics too much. I don't know if it's the proper way to win the public argument, but I do love doing that. So
It's not bad to cite graphs.
Oh, I love statistics. I have like 7 tabs open with different Gen Z polls as we speak. The problem is, if we want to get...
The problem is the three of us are nerds.
Yeah, and not just nerds. It's not just about the youth vote. It's about disengaged voters, people who have felt lost by the system, have felt abandoned, or feel like they don't have a voice. That is one of the biggest reasons for people getting disengaged. They don't see themselves being represented. They don't see the change that they want to happen happening. By having this tour be led by Gen Z people who are actively organizing, who are actively leading their own organizations, we're hoping to inspire other young people and give them some fun, sandcastles, food. Let's have fun.
I love that. I love building sandcastles.
Sam, let's build some sandcastles together, all right?
We absolutely will.
Tour to Sandcastle Democracy. That's what the hashtag stands for now. So it's one of the things I want to ask about when you talk about inspiring people and what you really want out of this. I'm curious, you're going, again, around the country, and I love the idea that it's in all these different swing districts. You're targeting different congressional seats that are going to matter in terms of controlling the government. But what do you want to happen after you leave? Because you're going to be there for a day or maybe a weekend, and then you're going to be on to the next spot. What do you want to happen in these districts? Like, what are you hoping the lasting impact will be in terms of months later when the election happens? How will you have made that difference?
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say, we exist as a way to bridge the gap between candidates and young people to candidates. We really, really want to get these people who may not have heard of this candidate to get signed up to their campaigns and volunteer with them and canvass with them. And that can happen when we leave. We are existing to kind of bridge that gap and give people hope that change is possible. And I want to talk about the gun lobby for a second. They actively say their goal is to break the wills and the hope of people like us and people like you listening. Their biggest desire is that for anybody who's in opposition to them, they do not want you to have hope that change is possible. And they want to feel like it's overbearing and that there's no possible chance forward. Giving into that could be the worst thing. It will be the worst thing that we do. And so we can bridge that gap and also tell them this is possible. Look at what we've been able to do over the last 3 years, and this is what we can do. Look at all the stuff that we can do. Yes, it's not enough. Of course, it's not enough. And here's what we can do if you send this person to Congress, go volunteer with this guy, for an hour every week. That's all it really takes. But we hope that people will get signed up to our partner groups like Progress Lives, and we hope that people will get signed up to insert name of candidate here in their campaign. That's really what we hope to do.
Yeah, Sam and I were just talking about this 3 days ago. We really want to be sure that we leave an impact in the areas where we're going to be, which is why Sam has partnered up with so many other organizations. When people come to the tour, they get to meet leaders of other organizations like my own, like Voters of Tomorrow, like Progressive Victory, right? Each of those have their own state chapters with their own communities where people can make friends, where people can find other ways to get involved and almost create a culture and community around activism.
Yeah, and it's another way for us to build that culture and that collaboration, which the right absolutely has. I mean, we've talked about this on this podcast before. They have all their messaging nailed, and they're probably all in one big group chat, right? Not really, but it feels like it. They're so concise, and we really don't have that. We have a bunch of different people, all grassroots donors who, every single time there's a shooting, 5 new groups pop up, and we're really trying to connect those people ahead of this election because nothing else matters other than people being connected, Democrats being connected in these target seats who actually have an influence in them.
We're coming up on time soon, so I want to ask the traditional final question that we always ask on this podcast, and that is, where can people go to learn more? I'm happy to recommend the Tour to Save Democracy. You should go to their website. You should check out their Twitter. We're going to link that in the show notes. I'm sure you can learn more there. But I'm very happy to recommend you guys and just mask off kind of behind the camera kind of thing. I really hope that, the Center for New Liberalism can help push you guys and help you be successful, because I want you guys to be the most prominent example of Gen Z activism. I don't want it to be the kids who are gluing themselves to like, artwork or whatever. I'd rather it be you guys. So I'd if the problem is that, stupid things are loud and effective things are quiet, well, we got to make the effective things louder then.
Exactly
so
right.
I'm hoping that I can help towards that. But, so all that to say, I'm very happy to recommend you guys and promote you guys. But other than just your own website and your own kind of plans, what else do you have that influences your thinking that you would recommend to people who are interested in, whether it's a particular issue we've talked about, whether it's just the idea of how do you be effective, how do we elect Democrats? What would you recommend for people who are interested in learning more about how to be effective, how to elect people, how to get things done?
There's so much. I mean, I just read this really good book by Rachel Bidikofer. I don't know, we're talking about that, but it's called Hit 'em Where It Hurts. That was the best book I've read recently on how people can get more engaged and actually start messaging more effectively. And that has really influenced like the way in which I think about this tour and like how we're going to be on the road doing this kind of stuff. But yeah, like it's really just kind of the biggest thing I've learned is like simplify your arguments and stop. Like again, like I know how Jeremiah and Maya were like, I just realized you guys have similar end sounding names. That's funny. But like, it's good to know your statistics and know your facts like the back of your hand, but realize that other people, especially apolitical ones, will not care at all, and you're going to totally lose them. So just always keep your arguments so simplified. Republicans have that down so smoothly.
That is funny about our names. I just realized that as well. Like Maya Jeremiah sounds like a Pokemon evolution.
Yeah. I was it took me a second though. I was looking at Sam like he was crazy.
Yeah, I said it and I was like, okay, that's weird. But yeah, if you guys want to get involved, go to tourtosavedemocracy.org. We'd love to see everybody listening. We'd love to see you at an event. And we're going to probably in the majority of your listening states like Texas, Arizona, California, New York, Virginia, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Ohio, forgetting more.
Nebraska, don't forget Nebraska.
Yeah, Nebraska, yeah.
Are you guys going to be in Montana? We love Montana here.
We're not going to be in Montana, sadly.
Interesting. Maya, anything from you in terms of like things that you've read, blogs you would recommend or books or just anything for people who want to learn more about how do you be effective as an activist? How do you get things done?
So, I think
if you just want to run with Sam's answer, that's fine.
No.
I mean, you have a Substack, right?
Yeah, I do. We do have a Substack. But I don't want to plug that first. That's too much. But on a simpler note, this is not a book. This is not a blog. People overcomplicate politics. They overcomplicate action. All it takes for you to make an impact in your little community is just doing it, right? Myself, Sam, we both went into politics without any high hopes or dreams. We just wanted to make a difference in our own little way, and it's escalated. There are opportunities for everyone everywhere, and you don't have to put a barrier for yourself. You can do it. And then, as Sam said, we also just unveiled a Substack for Progress Libs, the Progressive Beacon. We are putting out stories bi-weekly. We're promoting young writers, variety of topics. We just had our editorial director write his first piece, an amazing piece about racism and the fight against Jim Crow laws in the South. Definitely recommend it.
Well, I really, really am looking forward to seeing what you guys get up to. I know you're going to be doing a ton of work over the next few months, so good luck with that. But I wish you guys all the success in the world, and I hope that the CNL and our local chapters can be of some help in pulling this thing off and ultimately towards winning in November. I want to thank you guys one more time for coming on the podcast. Sam Schwartz and Maya Luna, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, and I love all the work the CNL does, and I'm so happy we can work with you guys on this tour this summer. Thank you.